Hello, everyone. I'm Brahm Mishra, and today I am joined by three fabulous guests. I'm so excited for it. Technically, they've all already been on my channel once before, maybe in secret, but you shall know all three. So let me introduce them first in alphabetical order. I have Big Deno here today, Trent Dennison
Hello,
on
bro.
YouTube, stream
Hello,
on
friend.
Twitch.
Not just alphabetical, but also the best looking.
Okay. And then also joined by Mumford. He joined me in my first hero demo, but this is the first time he's actually
Yeah.
joined me in a video.
Yeah, hey, how's it going? Second most attractive. I very proud to take claim of that one.
Now I feel bad for PhD, but next time I'm joined by PhD. The alphabet has failed you.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I'm okay with bringing up the rear.
Wow.
What we're doing today is we're going to talk about the hobby side of Kingdom Death, something I very, very amateurishly touch on whenever I talk about it. So this will be great. We're going to be doing top 10 of Kingdom Death sculpts, release sculpts. So any one that's mentioned here has appeared on the store already. We're not doing future sculpts that who knows when they'll be released, if at all. But so this is very exciting because for me personally, I never really do much painting stuff. I wish I did. I always feel like I let down that side of Kingdom Death. So I'm so glad and so thankful for the three of you to be joining me. And I'm just going to go the same way. So starting with Deno, how long have you been painting?
I started painting models when I was about 15, so that's 26 years, 27 years.
I picked up the little painting hobby back in 2018 when I got the core set for Kingdom Death.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I had a lot of, me time during, the pandemic. So I spent a lot of time, painting then.
What was the first thing you painted, Deno?
No, definitely wasn't Kingdom Death. No, the first box set I ever bought was a Warhammer box set of Empire Halberdiers. They were one-piece plastic guys holding halberds like this and standing there like this with shields.
Oh, yes.
So I started 2021, mid-pandemic, because I started watching, I think, Miniac videos, and as I was losing my mind being stuck inside, for whatever reason, painting the model seemed really, really cool. And I started with Kingdom Death, so I have no GW influence at all. So everything was sort of learned since then through Kingdom Death.
And then, do you paint anything else now? You must spread out, or do you just do Kingdom Death?
Yeah. So Kingdom Death is sort of like my main staple that I end up kind of appreciating, but I have sort of started looking sort of outward to maybe other smaller sculptors like Neko Galaxy, Left Hand Crafts. I'm trying to think of what some of the other ones, Limbo Division. So it's a little bit smaller, but I would say like 85% of the models that I have currently are all Kingdom Death stuff.
Deno, when was the first time you entered a painting contest?
The first time I entered a painting contest was 2012, somewhere around there. But yeah, the first serious one I entered was an event in Australia called the Crystal Dragon, and that was 2015 that I entered that. I entered some Guild Ball models. I entered a fisherman team, got a bronze, which was awesome. But more recently, I've been entering some of the major European competitions, so Monte Sansovino, Scale Model Challenge.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what the first competition I entered was. I think it might have. Oh, it was probably one of the community competitions we did on the Discord. I think there was something before the pinup competition which I entered, and I don't remember what I painted for it.
I think it was the Echoes one, right?
Yeah, that's right. It was Echoes. I don't remember which one I painted for that, but yeah, I submitted something to that, and then I've done the other Lanterns Ring competitions, and the only other competitions I've really put a lot of time and effort into have been the Gen Con painting competitions for the past 2 years. But like, I don't really get a whole lot of excitement out of painting for competitions, which is why I don't generally do it. I like to participate in them, especially the community ones, because it's fun to, see everybody else working on their stuff at the same time and talking about it. But yeah, if I didn't know people in the competitions, I probably wouldn't be painting for competitions. So
I think the first competition I entered was legitimately that first year that I started painting at Gen Con, because I found out some of the Discord people were going to go to Gen Con, so submitted a Kingdom Death stuff. Maybe conversely to Mumford, I really like competitions. It's that opportunity to push yourself to kind of try to improve, and paired with that and the Discord competitions, so like a lot of the community ones, I try to enter in at least the ones where I have people that I'm aware of that are entering. Every now and again, I'll enter one that's kind of rogue, just because it's convenient as in my painting schedule. But Gen Con's sort of been the main focus. I have some plans, I think, to do different painting competitions next year, if graduating and becoming an adult and trying to buy a house and stuff works out. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I'm not sure yet.
Deno, have you ever entered with a Kingdom Death sculpt?
Yeah, so every year in Brisbane there's an event called the Queensland Model Hobby Expo, and they have a wargaming category. And every year for the last 5 years I've entered some Kingdom Death pieces in that category, just from my collection of stuff that I've painted for the game.
So you're doing game pieces? Are you building up, bases for those?
Yeah, I mean, I've got my collection. If you want to put up a picture of it, bro, I'll send you a picture. But my stuff is just basically tabletop models that I put a tiny bit more time in than I would normally on stuff, because I love Kingdom Death models. But all the stuff I paint for Kingdom Death I want to play with, so I don't really try and do competition level stuff generally.
Yeah, because I was working on the piece for the last the last official competition and the current community one, and I wasn't building a base, and I see everybody else making these fancy plinths with nice bases, and I'm like, I'm going to play with this model, and I'm not going to make a big base, and I feel like I'm kind of hobbling myself because of this, but I wasn't sure, so.
I can answer that if you want as a judge. It's not a negative to not have a full display plinth. I don't believe, as long as the quality of the base is good. I mean, we forget sometimes that the miniature hobby came from gaming roots, right? So I think it's a positive thing to have it on a gaming base and show that it's where its roots are from.
So you're saying that I'm more of a pure form of this artistic experience?
Absolutely. I think that actually puts you ahead of everyone else, in fact.
So speaking of judging, start with Deno. Have you judged competitions?
Yes. So I'm the head judge for the Crimson Brush. Crimson Brush. I was right the first time. Event in Australia. I've also participated in a few other judging of events in Australia, and then I've done some of the Discord judging for Lanterns Reign.
So I have a top 5. I'll share with you from 5 to 1. My 5 currently is Mellow, because she fills a niche in the game that no one else will have a fishing rod. So that's like one of the things. It's like, wow, this is really cool for gameplay wise. If I ever bring someone with a sky lure or whatever, she can represent that. The next one I had was Beast Hunter armor from Gambler's Chest. That is one of the hybrids, but the mini itself has like 6 weapons on it, and she's got a hood, which is the actual gear, the actual hybrid set gear. But the reason why I like that mini is because she's got a bow, she's got a dagger. She's just very painting her up is good, because then I'll probably get her to the table. That's the way I approach painting. If I'm going to paint a mini, I want to make sure I'm using it So my number 3 was Screaming Hoarder. Exactly the same. She's got an axe, a bow, a dagger. She's just super, super built out kit. And then number 2 is Skrell. I really love Skrell. She subs really well for like a scout. She also represents the niche of never having a gatherer mini when you're playing. So that's all I really look for her, because she's got the scythe, or sickle. She's got sickle. But then she could sub as a scout. And then finally, my favorite one is Echoes 3 Sniper, which was the Sunstalker kit from the Echoes 3, which had the bow, which is the bow that doesn't have range. I forget. Sunshark bow. But like I said, I doubt those have no approach for painting and nothing about detail or anything on them. So that's how I look at them, and I'm sure there's other players who approach that like that. But I'm just so thankful that you guys are going to share your much more hobbyist side of it, rather than me just saying this has cool game piece.
I'm not gameplay over model specifically, but I am looking, like when I'm looking for something that I want to paint for the game, I'm generally looking at what survivors I've got in the campaign that I'm running and trying to find models that have equipment that kind of lines up with what I'm putting on the table. But then I think my top 10 list doesn't quite follow that.
So we'll get into your top 10s. Now, how we'll do this is we'll go the snake.
There's quite a few, like I've got some good stories for why I chose the ones that I chose, but my 10th pick is actually the first Kingdom Death model I ever painted. I did a commission very, very long ago. Before I even knew anything about Kingdom Death, I got asked to paint some Kingdom Death models as a commission. So my number 10 is the pin-up dragon sacrifice. And I'll pop a little link in our chat so you guys can have a look, just in case you don't know exactly which one I'm talking about. But there you go. Yeah, really great model. I'd have wonderful memories of it, because that's the first Kingdom Death model I ever painted. And it was back when I was trying to get more serious about painting, so 2015, 2016. And yeah, it was awesome figure. Awesome figure.
Yeah, so you recently just repainted this again.
Did I? Oh, yeah, I did too, actually. Yeah, you're right, because I painted Hollow, didn't I?
Yes.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, very good.
Did you think about that when you were doing it?
I completely forgot about that. Well, Hollow's very different. She's got a lot more armor, so but, yeah. No, when I was going through the top 10 list trying to pick my favourites, I went onto Kingdom Death Collector and I just scrolled through, and that one jumped out at me. I was like, that's got to be on my list somewhere. So
She's cool.
I painted this one pretty early on when I was also getting into it, and she was close to being on my list.
So just from like a painting perspective, how happy are you that they scaled up? Because she's the old scale, which was 28. Now I think they're 32, 34. I forget what the new scale minis are.
I'm very happy. I hate small models.
Yeah, I much prefer them to be just a little. They can call them 35, but if they're
30, that's what
45,
40 millimeters, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, new scale is so much nicer. Like,
agreed.
Just the eyes makes such a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, it looks a little weird to put a new scale next to one of the starting survivors, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, my number 10 is Bright Knives from the Gambler's Chest, one of the narrative sculpts. Yeah, she's got the dual knives, cool haircut, a bunch of... That's rawhide armor, isn't it?
The rawhide headband.
Yeah, she does. She's the new one.
Yeah, she's the rawhide headband. I mean, she hits my table pretty early in a campaign, in most campaigns, because that's one of my utility grids. Like, it's a rawhide set. I always have a rawhide set in a campaign. But I also just like, I like her pose, though I do find it a little bit difficult to get a good angle to like get a nice photo of her with. Because you want, like, the shot that I have of her is kind of her straight on, and her profile doesn't read super well because her daggers are kind of hidden behind and in front of her body. Yeah, just like that. But like, she's a lot of fun to paint. I've painted her twice. There aren't many models that I have painted more than once. So that is why she got, onto the list, because she's one of those models that I've done a couple times and, really enjoyed both times that I've actually painted her. And, she's cool.
Now, how do you feel about? Because I know she's got an interesting pose because she's standing on that like hand thing for her base. Have you ever
Yeah.
tried to custom base?
I do custom bases every once in a while, but I don't do anything super crazy. I don't repose anything too much. And once Kingdom Death started producing bases that had more interesting details on them, I kind of stopped even trying to modify the bases that they're coming with. So anything in the Gambler's Chest, I'm probably not modifying the base. Earlier stuff that came with just the flat plastic or just a stone face, I might build something up to make it a little bit bigger, which is what I did with the Squires, because the Squires didn't have anything interesting because those were older models. But yeah, the bases in the Gambler's Chest and Echoes, like those are cool. I like those. I don't touch those for the most part.
So, kind of similarly to Deno, is that this was the first Kingdom Death model that I painted. Originally, I had set out to paint the white speaker, but I made sort of that amateur mistake of, oh well, I want the thing that I want to paint to be good, so I should practice on this other model. Well, the model that I decided to practice on was this Death High Murderer. So in my heart, there's this soft spot for wanting to have painted this to practice to paint something else, but it ended up being a really great model that, because I had no idea, I had no familiarity with how resins versus plastics kind of worked, it ended up shattering and I couldn't find all the pieces, which is kind of bittersweet, but it sort of launched me into like, oh, okay, well, I'll just paint another one and then just keep going. As for like, speaking about a little bit of the model, it's there's some like some horror aspects to painting a murderer that's, I think, set into a high school setting. It's just one of the sort of the side I don't know what you'd call it, like a side project from Kingdom Death, because Kingdom Death's primarily fantasy, and they've got like the Death High line, they've got the sci-fi line. Trying to think if there's any other. They've got like the barbarian lines. They've like slightly different versions of Kingdom Death, and the Death High ones just ends up being one of my favorite, because it's kind of the what if Kingdom Death was an anime aspect that I just appreciate.
Every time I see a model now from that range, I just get a little bit closer to thinking, maybe I will paint one of those.
Yeah, they always resins?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was real close to picking up the Death High Moss. Like, she was real cool. Like, I did grab all of the Death High starting survivors, just because. But Moss was the only one that I've seen that I was like, what? I might pick that one up. So, spoilers for the rest of my list, I guess.
All right, so PhD, what's your number 9?
Let's see. Let me double check to make sure this is right. Yeah, so number 9 is the Holiday White Speaker Nico. I like a lot of the...
Is it the painter scale version or the one that's in...
No. So this is the old one. So like I like a lot of the Red Witches, and I'm pretty excited for that expansion to come out. But White Speaker Nico is this older holiday box that came out. I'm trying to I couldn't identify when it came out, but it's one of the older ones.
Yes, it's before the game launched. Story in the Snow.
But like the big aspects that I love models that come with an incorporated base. Like, don't get me wrong, I appreciate painting a model and then coming up with a base to sort of to fit some kind of narrative that I have in mind. But whenever they have like the incorporated base with all the various stone face bases, the lanterns, like they're going for some kind of ambiance, in in the basing. I'm a huge fan of that, and I'm just a huge fan of the white speakers in general. So this sort of made number 9 just because it's one of the early holiday models that I was like, oh, this is really cool. This is incorporating both the gameplay aspect as well as kind of having a bit of fun with the timing of whenever the model was released.
Now, I was gonna when the first time someone mentioned this, I just wanted to make note of how often do you find yourself when you're looking to purchase a mini or something to paint with an incorporated base like PhD was just talking about? How big of a draw to you is that as like a buying point as a painter?
It's not really a relevant fact for me. If the model's awesome, I can make a base.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I think I have, it's not quite the factor I'll look for the model itself, but if it has the incorporated base, that's like whenever I'm trying to decide what my new project is going to be, if I'm not feeling doing something really involved, I might do something that's got the base built into it. If I'm more interested in sort of doing everything from scratch, something a little bit more involved, I'll pick a model that doesn't have a base. So I think it's good to have them in like the inventory to sort of pull from, but it only kind of comes into play based on how much effort I want to spend.
All right, so my number 9 is going to come as a shock to some people. It's Barbarian Lucy. It is Lucy. I do want to say on the record that Lucy sucks. I am kind of upset that I have Lucy on this top 10. But they make so many Lucy models, and a lot of them are good. So it's inevitable that she's going to show up on here. But this is not an endorsement for Lucy. You guys all know my opinion still. But like this, it was between Summer Lucy and this Lucy that I was going to put up here. This model's got a lot of skin, and that was something I learned to paint with Kingdom Death. And I didn't know that like skin is not an easy thing to paint well. And I didn't know that going into the hobby, so I was just like, oh, it's Kingdom Death, and I'm going to learn how to paint, all these half-naked survivors. And I learned to really enjoy doing it. So this model was like, oh, here's a barbarian in a leather bikini, and, there's a lot of skin, and it was a lot of fun to paint. And she looks cool, like, great pose, fun facial expression, like, there's a lot of stuff going on here that I really enjoyed. And I think the hair here was hair on Lucy that I enjoyed painting more than other Lucy models.
Is this one the painter scale or is it the regular?
This one is the painter scale, yes. And I painted this for Gen Con last year.
Oh, you're that Mum 4-day.
Yeah,
I'm that Mum 4-day, yes. I don't normally paint painter scale models, but I did this one for the large category last year.
It's a great paint job, and it's a great selection. I was very close to putting this one in my top 10 also. I think it's a fantastic model. So.
Yeah, she's really cool. I mean, working on the base, I think I was talking with, this was a long time ago, I think I was working with Lexi and got a lot of advice on how to help, accentuate the movement you see in this model. And she had a lot of feedback for, what's going on with the base to help you direct your eyes up towards the interesting bits. But the model has a lot of that as well.
Now, since you brought up learning, and then PJ also talked about it, I know there's this one thing that I've always seen people suggest, because there's always, should I paint? People are always worried about painting, starting with a Kingdom Death model, because then you'll probably do a bad job and then you'll ruin it. How do you guys feel about, should someone learn to paint using Kingdom Death models? Or should they just take another board game mini at random and try on that first?
In my opinion, you should learn to paint with the models that you are excited about.
100%.
That is correct.
You could, if you really want to play Kingdom Death and you want to have color on your minis, but you're concerned that you're going to mess them up, if you're excited about it, you're going to do a better job than if you just say, well, I've got these Space Marines, but I don't really care about Warhammer. I could learn how to put paint on those things. Like, sure, then you have some painted Space Marines, but if you're not excited about playing with them or just painting them, it's not going to hook you as well, and you're not going to be as invested in trying to do a good job with it.
So for the kind of back to the story of where I picked the model. I wanted to do the white speaker, and then I ended up practicing on the Death High model that ended up exploding. All of that was again to practice to try to get the white speaker painted. But after getting excited to paint about painting and doing different projects, I never went back. I haven't painted the original white speaker white box. So it's paint the things you're excited about, because you'll find new stuff that is going to get released, and you're going to want to paint that, and you're going to keep moving forward, and you're not really going to look back and think about the older model that kind of started everything. Paint the models that you want, that excite you, because you will get better over time. And maybe if you're really invested, you might come back and revisit them. I mean, but it's paint the models that are exciting right now. Don't wait.
Very wise words from both of those gentlemen. I agree entirely. It's nice to have a record of your progress too, So if you're using something like Kingdom Death, and you're painting new releases and they come out and you get excited, seeing your starting survivors, which are probably not going to be anywhere near as good as your recent stuff, but every time you use them, you're going to think, look how much I've improved. It's a little motivating thing, so.
Yeah, I am never disappointed to put my early models on the board. They don't look nearly as good as the stuff as I'm painting now, but they still look good. And it's still nice to see that progression.
So Gambler's Chest was such a huge moment in time for Kingdom Death. I think everyone's enthusiasm was flagging a little for the game, and Gambler's Chest came out and it's just exploded. So I really wanted to include one of the narrative sculpts in my top 10, just because of how impactful I felt it was. And there's so many narrative sculpts in there that it's outrageous. It's really hard to choose one. The one I went for is the Bowmaster of Deadrock. It's a sick model. I really am super keen on ancient Greek and Roman myth, and so this guy's wearing the super cool. It's like a helmet, Spartan Greek helmet, with the plume, which is of course a phoenix armor set. It's a really dynamic posed model. It's got cool details. I could have chosen any of about 15 narrative sculpts. I think they're stunning. It's one of the best things Kingdom Death's ever done, is move to narrative sculpts instead of the multi-part plastic survivor pests from the original box. So yeah, great model. I haven't painted it yet, but I'm looking forward to working my way through all the narrative sculpts, which are just over there, which is why I keep looking over there. Yeah, it's gonna be a good one when I get around to painting it.
So you don't like the armor kits. How do you feel about the new armor kits?
I'm still traumatized from the Rawhide set, so I haven't assembled any since. I haven't even looked at
Like the armor sets from the Gambler's Chest were pretty cool. Like the Crimson Crocodile set is really cool.
I've got the Bullfrog Dog and the Frog Dog set still in my box. I haven't assembled them yet. I may go back to them, but there's so many figures for Kingdom Death, right? So many figures,
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm like, I want to paint the ones that are awesome, and I want to paint ones that are just okay. And at this point in time, from my perspective on armor sets, they're just okay. That may change. We'll see. So this one, another one I haven't painted. I've only painted about 5 or 6 on my list. So. Kingdom Death has incredible pin-ups, just really, really amazing figures. And I'm not normally someone that goes for just gratuitous nudity or anything like that. And sometimes I think Kingdom Death does err on that a little bit too much. But every now and then I see one of those gratuitous nudity models and I just think, that's such a sick model. And so Lolawen, which was quite a recent release, I think, 50mm plastic. There's some lore stuff behind it, which I think is great, but mostly I'm captivated by the pose. It's very, very unique. I love the detail on the base.
You're talking about
And
the painter scale for clarification.
the painter's scale, yeah, the one sitting on the egg, holding
Yeah.
an egg.
Because some of these do come with two, and Lolowin is the one. She also comes with the girl with the
Yeah.
bat.
Yeah, it's the one sitting on the egg. I just think it's such a really cool pose and a beautiful figure. So it makes my number 8.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this model. It has a lot of the. I think one of my favorite things about some of these painter skills and with the Kingdom of Death in general is that they'll sort of contrast. Here's maybe more master painterly artistic beauty, and then they'll put it right next to something that's like grotesque and like I think there are like bunnies or masks that are on pikes or something like that. They're like stone faced bases, but they're on various spears, and depending on where your imagination takes you, can be really grim dark. And then it's right next to the artistic beauty aspect of it, and I kind of appreciate the playing with the two elements, especially in the painter scale version. The game scale one I think is kind of a
Also
cutie
good.
pie, but
Yeah.
the painter scale one for Lolowin. Plus, it plays into the game aspect of the lagomorphs, which I always think is cool.
Yeah, Zero's working on a Lolo win right now, and there was another Lolo win that just went up within the last month or so. That was also really cool.
That was actually what made my top 8 because of that model that you're talking about, the one that was a couple of months ago we saw in the Discord or doing Instagram rounds or something. It was awesome.
Yeah, so Bra, if you could find that one and post that in there, that would be great.
City mini.
Yeah, I gotta ask.
It was. Yeah, I'll find it for you now.
Awesome. So I'll move on to my number 8 then, which is this guy right here, Badar. I like Badar a lot. He's another model that has like some fun motion in him. He's got that sword sticking out. His cloak is following along with that. He looks really cool. Like
Prince of Persia.
there's not much else I can say. What?
Prince of Persia.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the old days.
Yeah, I like the aesthetic. He's got a lot of fun little details. He doesn't have too many details, which I tend to shy away from. There are some models, like Skrell recently was one of the models where I was like, oh, there's too much stuff on here, so that's a model I'll never paint. But Badar, toes that line for me pretty well. He's got some cool little stuff from the armor kit, but it's not too much.
Yeah, the Spidey armor, right? That's
silk armor.
The silk armor, that's what it is.
Yeah, and then this was one of the models that I did for a relay. So I don't know if I had actually picked him up. It got shipped to me, and yeah, just painting him was so much fun because it's a cool pose, cool model. And I got to goof around with some NMM when I was, starting to learn that.
So for my number 8 is the old generic Thief. So Thief ended up making its way into Echoes. I want to say Echoes 1.
Yes, the backstabber.
And then, so I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about it's a really old early model of Thief that was apparently a nightmare to put together. It was awfully spindly, but it's I think it's sort of maybe the early basis of why Kingdom Death models are, at least amongst painters or the painters that I talk to, which I suppose there's a bias, but these models look great because they aren't just standing there. They're not just something that you have to imagine something around necessarily. Sometimes they're incorporated with interesting poses or putting them in interesting situations. And this one in particular, I just really like because of the elements, both the umbrella, the pose, like the hands creeping up out of the base, whatever, whether those are stone hands or however you want to paint it and imagine it. But there's a lot of different aspects that are coming into this model that I really, really just find very cool. And I'd actually really like to see them remaster this one either as a print, or I don't know how feasible it would be as plastic, but if they could reprint this, remaster it, I think I would be pretty happy about that.
I did a commission of that.
Yeah, it's I think I have a list of some of the other paintworks that aren't just mine that I really appreciated, and I think yours made it on the list here. So it's one of those.
It was
Yeah.
a nightmare to put together.
Yeah, yeah. I heard that this one was real bad, but I like the ambition maybe
Mm.
for the model, because I don't see too many models that are kind of pushing the envelope of what's capable of small plastic or small resin casts. Um, you end up seeing more, I guess, envelope pushing in maybe the painter scales, maybe the larger models where you have a lot more room to experiment with motion and facial expression and textures and fabrics and stuff like that. So at these smaller scales, this is really hard. Number 7 here is a pinup. So kind of thinking about the
Oh,
maybe the ludity. This is the pinup Nightmare Ram armor, um, and to be honest, I kind of just like it for the pose. The
Mm.
sort of
Sure.
the
Yeah.
knee up, the leg extended with the axe, or I'm sorry, the like the Nightmare Ram
Stick?
word, yeah. Just the something about it, and then if you look at the art, I think that Lockman was in charge of. It has these really nice pinks and browns next to yellows, and it just ends up kind of uh, doing a lot for me in terms of like, wow, this is a really cool model, and I think there's a lot going on here. And I think perhaps maybe in this instance, the artwork is selling a lot more than perhaps the model. Uh, that I just really liked how the colors that were used and the story that was kind of being conveyed there. So of course I had to pick up this model. And I think I linked to the painter scale, but there's also um, the plastic scale that came with the pinups box. I don't remember which box. So there's the painter scale, which was resin, and then the pinups box had this model, but at game scale. So they were sort of released separately. This was from a contest. One of the contest winners chose this from the APG pinup contest as like the release the painter scale version of this model.
How influential is the artwork for depicting what you feel you're going to paint when you get a mini?
If I am feeling lazy, I'll reference the art. If I don't have any like ideas, I'll reference the art and just run with that.
I, That's an interesting question. The Kingdom Death art is such a huge part of why I love the game. Like, I am absolutely blown away by the art. Every time I'm recording a playthrough, I'm like, oh, this is some of my favorite art in the game. And I say that about 30 times an episode. So I really think the art is hugely influential on why I love the game, but it doesn't often influence the way I paint, I don't think. So there's been times when I've looked at art and tried to replicate it, and generally that's been when I've done some pretty shit paint jobs. So, because I think it's really hard to replicate two-dimensional paint style into a three-dimensional form for starters, and then it's also hard to replicate another artist's style, and some of the art in Kingdom Death is very, very stylistically unique. Lockman, the other Korean guy who's done all the stuff for like Verminism, that guy, I can't remember I don't know how to pronounce his name. Yeah, his stuff is unbelievable, and God, I would hate to try and replicate that on a figure. So it doesn't influence my painting as much, but it does influence my enthusiasm for the figures.
Yeah, I think as when I was more of a beginner, whenever I was first starting out painting, I think the artwork kind of inspired me as like, yes, this is we're gonna this is cool, but I might change this little aspect. But the artwork was kind of the inspiration to get me excited and put the model together and start painting and getting worked done. Um, now with a little bit more, I don't know, season underneath my belt, I suppose the the artwork is kind of the cool direction, but I think I try not to let you know I try to play more to my strengths in what I really like painting more so than necessarily following the art. Not that I think that the artwork's bad or anything, but I think as an earlier beginner painter, the artwork played probably a much more significant role in how I, what inspired me and what got me started. And
I mean,
kind of like Deno said, Lockman, some of my favorite art comes out of Kingdom Death. It's kind of bananas.
yeah. And as like a beginner painter, if you're just looking to it as inspiration for like what colors should I be using, like what looks good together, it helps. Like I said, it allows me to just not think about a part of the process if I don't want to think about it.
Yeah, because Deno, didn't you just paint Aya blonde?
Yeah, I paint however I want, mate. Iris got red hair.
All the rules.
I painted Urza with blue hair too.
I mean, hair color is probably the one thing that I stick to as much as I can.
Live on the edge, mate.
Don't know. I can't live that lifestyle. So my number 7 is Willow.
Oof. Mwah.
Yeah, Willow's great. Not a whole lot of skin. The pose isn't super crazy. I mean, it's a decent pose. Like, but she's got cool armor. She's got a fun weapon. I painted the resin version of her, so I wouldn't even call what I'm showing you guys right now a base that I built. I just put some grass on and painted this thing up. But I don't know. There was something that I just liked about this model. Like,
She's got attitude. She just, you can tell from looking at her. She's awesome.
Yeah, it might be that. Like, I do like the attitude, the hair and everything about it. Like, it was a nice model. I mean, it's kind of simple. It's just a nice armored woman in Kingdom Death. Like, she's cool.
Yep.
And now she's out in plastic, and I'm never going to paint her again.
What I find interesting at this point is no one has selected a monster. I would have thought that we would have had some monsters in there. I actually I picked a specific subset of monsters for my top 10, which is knight models. I think the knights are some of Kingdom Death's coolest figures. And so this one that I've picked for I don't know what number I'm up to, but it's the Scissor Knight, the Elder Scissor Knight. I've never painted it, but it's just got such awesome armor, cool character. I've never seen a model carrying a giant pair of scissors. It's just a fantastic model. I hope at some point it gets re-released in plastic and is a monster you can fight against, because I would absolutely love to paint that for my collection. I think it's one of the most unique and characterful models in the entire Kingdom Death collection. Yes, my number 6. So this is again, this was really a lot of fun. I've got to say, I really enjoyed working my way through these. And I sort of wanted to just pick things from the game or things from the models that have been released that just really capture my imagination. And for whatever reason, I love the idea of taking generic fantasy archetypes and converting them into a Kingdom Death version of that. And so the peasant hero is my number 6, which is, just it's Little Red Riding Hood with chopping off a big bad wolf's head in Kingdom Death style. I just think it's a fantastic model, dynamic pose. It's just got a great story to it. I'd love to paint it. I haven't painted it. It's probably never going to get painted by me, I don't think. But yeah, it's a fantastic sculpt. I've seen some great versions of it too.
Yeah, she almost made my list. She's real cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is another piece that has a lot of fun movement in it.
Yeah.
My number 6, very similar to the previous one. I've got here the Cockroach Queen.
Ooh, beautiful.
Yeah, it's not quite the same sort of attitude, but she's got some attitude in that pose, and it's got this great,
Triangle.
movement,
Yep.
and it's got a lot of lantern armor on it, which is something that I don't mind painting. I like goofing around with it, and in this one I was goofing around with like different colors and trying to figure out if it would still look like armor and metal. But like The Cockroach Queen is another model that I will pull out for early survivors. Because, yeah, I know she's wearing lantern armor, but the daggers, that's something that I tend to throw on a survivor early on in certain cases. So she's been hitting the table a lot more recently since I've been playing the Gambler's Chest. But yeah,
And
she's
she's
a blast.
verminism.
Yes.
Verminism, the
Mhm.
best philosophy.
Mhm.
Get in.
I haven't leveled up Verminism, so I
Oh
had
my god.
Yeah.
Kill
I've
me.
got somebody with
It is the
hissing arms all
best.
the way up there, but
Oh,
Yep. Verminism's
and the,
wild.
the interesting thing you're talking about that pose, I love the negative space, just the gaps. You know, you don't see that shape very often in figures. It's awesome. I painted it recently as well. She's
I
fantastic.
love
Great
that
selection.
sort of like window into the face
Mm.
where it's like I
yeah,
don't know
yeah,
the
it
nose
mirrors
gets
the
very
arms and everything. It's
very
great.
broody where it's like just I don't know movie poster esque is kind of what the vibes it gives me.
He's actually such a good insight into verminism as well. Like, as you, you don't, if you don't know the story, it's probably not as impactful. But when you know what happens in verminism, it's just like the pose is mirrored, and it's so cool. I love it. Great pick, Mumford.
Thank you, Deno.
Yeah, so my number 6 is the Smog Drummer. It's sort of serendipitous that they just released Smog Drummer. I forgot what the
Lead luck.
name. Yeah,
Lead
Ledla,
luck.
yeah.
and
Well, technically, she's not in the shop yet, but she is released.
yeah. So at Gen Con they released it, and I think in next sale. But the Smog Drummer.
Oh,
They
we don't
released
know
right
yet.
after.
It might be Gen Con exclusive.
Oh, I suppose.
No,
Uh,
the comments just went so crazy.
but I this is sort of in the same vein of it's got really cute art that's kind of contrasting where you have this really cute model next to maybe something that's uh, so like Kingdom Death can be really serious and broody and dark, but it can also just be kind of silly and brutal and I don't know. I'm gonna say kind of dumb. If you look at the art, the drums that she's beating on are all bruised up faces. Just she's like I don't know, and contrasting that with her like cute little pose and the and again something that I as a painter I'm kind of looking for a lot of things that I want to paint, which is skin. So for me, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of skin. It's kind of a really cute pose. Uh, and then you have the Kingdom Death elements of just like, oh, she's drumming on like faces, like fantasy faces that are getting bruised up, to make to be the Smog Drummer. Just so this model in particular, kind of one of my favorites, and having seen so many people paint it, is almost I'm not doing my due diligence because I have not painted this, but I've seen other people do it and then complain about the resin constantly breaking because it's so fragile. So
I was gonna say this wouldn't be on your list if you had actually painted it.
that's probably true. That's probably true. But now it's in plastic. I suspect I won't have any of the problems that you faced because I had yours referenced for this one, so I liked it. This was back in your blue era.
Oh, blue background, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one was almost on my list, but I painted her and I broke her ribbons at least twice.
Yeah, I really like this one. This one's hilarious. Exactly for the same reason you just mentioned. The juxtaposition of the setting. Because have you ever seen like those things where drummers are drumming in the rain and like the water's all coming off the drum? Like I just imagine that like as she's hitting this, like it's just blood.
So for my fifth one was something that I actually just painted for Gen Con this previous year. It's actually something that I wasn't I did not expect to sort of add this one, but it kind of made it right there in the middle of my list where you have this really cool armored character that's kind of staring, at least for me, the way I was thinking about it is staring down the some kind of enemy or force, and you have to you have to kind of make your stand, your statement. And with the cape and her hair and the way that she's pointing with her shield or pointing with her sword and then with her shield, there's just a lot of really big movement that I was a huge fan of. And this ended up getting a gold at Gen Con, but maybe something that's kind of a little interesting outside of, the paint job and the model is that the art card and the model are kind of different. So at some point they made some changes between the art and the model, which is not necessarily why it made it number 5 in the list, but yeah, for a lot of, again, sort of that repeating element of there's a lot of it's dynamic, there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of personality, and for this particular model, it's a wide stance standing, staring something down, but the ended up making a lot of the base around it was kind of inspiration. I didn't have the model sort of called for it.
Your version's outstanding, PhD. Well done.
Thank you.
Every time I see this model, I'm just reminded of a very similar model by another manufacturer. So we shan't be discussing that. But I do love that model.
My number 5 is this guy right here. The Murderer,
Ooh.
specifically the bust.
Awesome.
I think this is the only bust that I've completed from Kingdom Death. I'd have to double check, but I like him because this encompasses everything that I like about Kingdom Death, which is, it's kind of horrific, but also like he looks like an idiot. He looks like a dummy, and it's really funny. But this is one of the only models that I enjoyed the sculpted pupils in the eyes for, because normally I don't like that. But I don't know if I would have given him that really dumb, like, eyes askew sort of look if those hadn't been sculpted in there. But yeah, this guy's real cool. Really fun bust. Well, I mean, once again, it has a lot of skin. So I got to paint a lot of skin, and that was enjoyable and fun. And there's a little bit of metal, and I just kind of goofed around on the blade for this thing. But it had a lot of elements that I like when it comes to painting Kingdom Death.
Would you prefer, if they include smaller busts, like in addition to painter scales, or do you prefer painting like the entire mini over just the bust?
I paint for the game table, so I don't generally go for busts or painter scales. So it's a rare occasion when I'm going to be interested in getting a bust, and the Murderer got me. He hooked me.
I actually hate this bust.
Deno.
It does absolutely nothing for me. Your version's great, but I particularly like the rusty blade, by the way. It's great. I find this, but I also hate the figure of this guy. Something about him I find off-putting, which is probably a good thing, right? Like that's what you want from that.
Yeah, that's the fight or flight response kicking in.
Yeah. I dislike it.
What
busts
does that say
general,
about me then?
I love painting busts. It's what I usually do as a palette cleanser between painting lots of figures. I'll just whip out a bust because I find them easier to paint because you get to imagine the story instead of it being on a base and it being present in the story. You get to think about where it is, what it's doing, how you can incorporate that in your painting. So bust painting can be really freeing and enjoyable. It is a very different skill set though to painting smaller figures, and these two nodding their heads.
Yeah.
So I've done a lot of busts. I love Kingdom Death busts. I've done the Lioness bust, I think it is the only one I've done. Hopefully I'll do some more in the future, but yeah, I don't think I'd like them to add busts into game content or anything like that. I think keeping them separate is the way to go.
Yeah.
So the Kingdom Death busts are bigger than most busts that I see out there. Like, do you like that larger scale that Kingdom Death is making, or is it just a different size for the medium?
The normal size of bust you tend to see 1 to 12 scale, 1 to 10, and then occasionally 1 to 8. Kingdom Death tends to be 1 to 10s to 1 to 8, so it is on the bigger side. But there's a few other bust manufacturers that do that, so they're not that far out of the norm. I think the Butcher one is the exception because it's just really, really big. So, yeah, I'm fine with the size. It's nice. They're cool pieces.
Except for this one.
Except for that one. That one's uncomfortably bad.
PhD, have you painted any busts?
Yeah. I yeah. I did not put any of the busts on my list because I've been hard locked at silver for a lot of the competition, and I was like, oh my goodness. And so I guess kind of what Deno's saying. just real quick on busts, that they are a really great palette cleanser, and at their scale, you kind of have to explore, um, more techniques, or maybe it's not more techniques. It's you have to be a lot more, um, I guess, focused on your outcome and how to properly build it up as you're painting, because you can't get away with some of the same, I'm going to call them tricks for, like, on a game scale, you only have maybe enough to do 3 or 4 different, like, value levels of jumping, and then you're always sort of focused on the face. But for a bust that's really, really large, trying to make sure that you're consistent with lighting and how you paint it and focus can be a little bit more challenging. Like, at least for me, as I'm learning, I'm finding that texture is a lot more, trying to explore texture on different materials ends up being more powerful than maybe, only playing with hue when you're painting a bust. And actually using Mumford's as an example, is, he's got the rust sword compared to the skin, and then a little bit of the shiny gold, like, I don't know, buckler that's on his waist. You sort of you get stronger contrast by exploring different textures on different materials. Um, so, but what ends up happening is, because of the scale and the speed that I paint, is that most of the bust ends up being, really invested projects that, I, at the end of the day, I sit there and think, yes, I've learned an awful lot, and I, appreciate having done it. But I end up only doing about 1 or 2 busts a year, just because of the investment that it takes for me.
So busted makes you feel good.
Yeah, busting makes me feel good.
Busting loose. My number 5. So again, I've got sort of my methodology behind it. I love what the Indomitable survivors add to the game. I think their white box content is pretty much perfect for what Kingdom Death needs. They add something that is genuinely great to chase after in the game, and then they're just I'm such a fan. So I picked one of the Indomitable survivors. I picked Lord's Ruin Titus. It's probably the least useful of the Indomitable survivors out of all of them, because the number of people that will face a level 3 king, and it already has Indomitable resources, so the likelihood you're going to pull this one, and then the likelihood you're going to use it, it's not actually the best content. The best one's probably Lenore. She's awesome. Great Indomitable resource. Anyway, this model is sick. Absolutely sick. It's got a scythe, which are always awesome to look at, the shape of them. It's got a naked leg for some reason, which I'm absolutely a massive fan of. King armor is some of the coolest armor. So you get a really nice mixture of textures of, skin, armor, bones, shapes, angle. It's just, I think it's a absolutely stunning figure, and as well as what it represents, which is Indomitable survivors. I think it's fantastic.
So King Armor almost steps into like being too busy for me. Like there's a lot of detail on it, but it's real close. Because like the details are interesting. It's not just a bunch of pouches.
Oh wait, yeah, that means Deno. Yeah, you've never. This is the first time you would have painted King armor then, if you've never used the narrative skulls.
I painted King armor on something the other day.
Oh, and Echoes 4 would have had one, I think.
Echoes 4. Yeah, I painted it on Echoes 4.
Was it the Paladin?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. The Paladin. She was in my 7 survivors, so I painted that.
Cool.
Great model too. I could have picked the top 100 for this list, by the way.
This is
Yeah.
the Titus model. His beefy leg just being exposed is always the draw. I'm like, what is going on?
It's so stupid, but it's so awesome, right?
Yeah, it's oh my gosh, it really does play into the Kingdom Death. Just like, something about everything's really serious, life and death, but also there's this dumb element that seems to be, I don't know, I shouldn't call it dumb, but like this really silly aspect of it that's just like, here's ridiculous into the narrative or the story. It's fun, it's scary, it's everything. I don't know. I'm a big fan.
I go to number 4 now, and it is another knight second of the monster sculpts. Storm Knight, another figure I have not yet painted, along with the Elder Scissor Knight, but I think they just capture something very uniquely Kingdom Death. The Knight figures in general. I've actually got 3 Knights in my top 10. This one, negative space is incredible. Like, you've got so many little things to look through. The flow of the model, for what is essentially a very static model, it feels very dynamic, and so I think that's quite hard to achieve. The smoke coming out of the multiple faces, great. The faces all over the armor, great. I feel like this guy's got to be related to Smog Singers maybe somehow, I don't know. But yeah, I love this figure. I hope to get the chance to paint it at some point in the future.
I think there's a good chance for this one to get plastic.
Yeah, I'm hoping for it.
This one got all kinds of stuff in Gambler's Chest with Regalism.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought I recognized him in a philosophy
was
I just picked up.
very expanded upon, so I would doubt if we see something with this one soon.
My number 4 is a monster.
Yeah,
It's the crocodile.
great pick.
I had to put a monster on here. Like, I could definitely do a list that's just top 10 Survivor sculpts. And I think I did have that as my first draft. And I was like, wait a second, I need to put a monster on. I really enjoyed painting the Crimson Crocodile. It's a cool, grotesque, goofy monster. Like, it's got everything I like about Kingdom Death all mashed into one. And it's also got a lot of fun movement. Like, it's fun to look at. It looks cool from multiple angles. Like, the Crimson Crocodile is just I like it a lot.
It's a smash hit in just about every context of this game. The model,
holy cows, yes.
the showdown, the gear, everything. It's just incredible.
Yeah. So I was going through the monsters and I said, Dragon King is kind of cool. These other monsters are kind of neat. But man, I love the Crimson Crocodile. And painting him was so much fun. Like, just so much stuff going on. Like, he's got fingers and hands and teeth, and you got to make up a base for him. Like,
Multiple eyes.
Yeah, tons of eyes, tons of big eyes. So they're fun to do. Like, just a great model.
Since you put this one on, how often do you find yourselves painting something prior to finishing the model? So with this one, I ask because there's all those stone faces underneath his fingers and stuff. So did you put his fingers on before you? Or did you paint under his fingers and then put them on?
Nobody got time for that.
Well, I know.
I think
I regretted
kinda...
it hugely with Dragon King. Putting Dragon King completely together. I wish I wouldn't have put Dragon. I wish I would have put his rib thing way after.
So I painted the Dragon King real early, so I definitely didn't fully assemble him. With the Crimson Crocodile, I think I just assembled the whole thing, and I said, I don't care about the stone faces. I'll just, prime it, and, whatever you can kind of see, I'll just make sure I put a little color on it.
Yeah, I think early on, whenever I was starting out, I felt like, oh, well, subassembly is going to be the way. That way I can get all the paint on the cool stuff that's kind of hidden. And now, as I become a little bit more experienced while painting, I'm just like, nobody's going to see it. Just put it together. You'll be more consistent with lighting. If it's all completely put together, you don't have to sit there and try to do the imagination of what's the angle that this is actually supposed to be, and then correct everything afterwards.
And then fix the gap, and
you're going to be
make
faster
sure the lighting works.
Putting it all together right away, and then just doing your best for those sort of recessed areas. It is sort of a pain, and you kind of start there. If you start sort of inside out, you'll end up taking care of those much faster than trying to do everything subassembly. I'm not sure. I feel like subassembly's worth it most of the time. It's very
few instances when subassembly is the right way to go. The Dragon King is actually probably one, because that face is an integral part of the story of the Dragon King. But yeah, the one thing you just touched on there, top tip for all hobbyists out there, if you are doing sub-assemblies and you want to fill gaps and you don't want to damage your paintwork, white glue, Elmer's glue. You can fill the gaps. It dries matte. You can paint over it.
I keep it on my desk all the time.
There it is. Easy way to do it. So
I did not know Elmer's glue. That's a new one. So next time I sub-assemble, I'll try that. So maybe in a year or two.
Mod Podge varnish too. Varnish always takes a little bit longer to dry, but
Yeah, I've found varnish to be more trouble than it's worth. But I guess it depends on the size of the gap.
and use a hairdryer. Dries it quicker.
my number 4 was already said early on by Mumford, so I guess I'll just throw the paintwork. But it's Barb Lucy. Yeah, and
Oh, yeah.
it really is just like we won't spend too much time on this because we've talked about it a little, but it's dynamic. There are a lot of different elements. There's skin. I mean, my top 10 list is basically how much skin is exposed. Oh, okay, so that's probably my favorite model, something like that. Yeah. And
Summer Lucy is your number one?
no, actually, Summer Lucy didn't make it, and I'm trying to think why.
Because she sucks.
It's because she's just sort of standing in a otherwise no pond, and you have to either paint the pond or just imagine the pond. And Lucy's great. I can't believe you. Yeah. Lucy's best girl. Easy peasy.
Yeah, if she was so good, she would have won at least one of the many polls that we've had.
This is slander. This is
It's not slander, it's truth.
no way. I cannot abide by
Like,
this.
even a no-name shippy container beat Lucy.
Shippy's a cutie pie, okay. Lucy's a cutie pie. I feel like what has happened is that all of the Urza stands could not deal with Urza losing, so that they just voted against Lucy. So I don't care if I lose, you can't win. Is what I
It
feel
does
like.
sound like an Urza move.
Yeah, I feel like it.
Hashtag Team Lucy.
So now we come to the top 3. PhD.
Very exciting. I wish I should probably go back and take better photos. I've kind of adopted painting for the gram. So once I take the photos, I try not to revisit the model unless I'm starting a new project, just because I feel like you're going to get hung up. But my number 3 is this pinup Black Knight. So Gen Con was, a lot of painting competitions are important to me, just because it's that opportunity to really push myself and hold myself to some kind of really high standard and try to do my best. This one was my early painting 2021. This was a year after I had started painting, so I was still kind of in that beginner mode, and I painted this for the Discord competition, and I ended up taking first place in the beginner category. But it was this model. It has a lot of the things that were that I found really useful as a beginner, where you had the incorporated base. You had a lot of dynamic movement. This is focusing very much on skin, which was part of the whole competition. It was a pinup competition, but it had a lot of different elements where we're looking at different fabric, we're looking at potentially stone, or we're looking at non-metallic metals, or at least that was what I ended up painting it. You could do true metallic, but there's some sort of like metal, there's skin, and there's this chance that I was able to practice on doing really good faces, trying to make the skin bright and shiny the way that it's supposed to be. And I got a lot of really good feedback, so I think this was kind of the springboard that inspired me to keep going. Part of that was being from the competition, and Deno was a part of that as well, and part of the judging. But so this model just has to be in the top 3 for me because of, again, all of that, the movement that's incorporated. It's still Kingdom Death, where you have these weird, maybe like grotesque monsters that are in it. You have a lot of lanterns. You have a lot of different materials that are playing a part. But this one just sort of, it's in my heart. So maybe there's like a little bit of bias here, why this is my number 3.
She's a good one. She's cool.
I've just brought up the picture that you took for the Discord painting challenge. It's lucky you won, mate. That's an ordinary picture, but it is a great figure. and it does straddle that line between the fun elements of Kingdom Death as well as the macabre sense of death that pervades everything. So yeah, it's a nice pick.
Yeah, that competition, I had no idea. So like, this is where I like because of that competition. This was like all eggs in one basket kind of hobby for me. After that, where, you know, how I did was not necessarily quite as important. You know, of course everybody wants to do well, but like the feedback and trying to improve was most important to me. And yeah, it was like getting feedback of, oh, I think I need to be taking better photos. Maybe I should actually start looking into, how to do that better. Not just I literally used a linty sweater as the backdrop and was like, I don't know, this is probably okay. And, from there was kind of history of trying to improve. But yeah, I don't know. I just had to put this in the top 3, even though whenever I look at that paint job, I'm like, you know what? I did some stuff that was pretty good, and I attempted some stuff. But I think if I were to do it again, probably wouldn't look very similar. It would look really different.
So when you originally, what drew you to this model? Because this one, because you didn't mention this time, but this is a very goofy model. Because she's riding that elastomer, like what do they call it? The playground teeter-totter thingy. I forget what it's called.
Yeah, it's yeah. Sorry, I guess whenever I think back, this is sort of like memory lane for me, where I remember the struggle, and I remember this model. Very frustratingly, has I'm going to call it a breastplate, where the head is attached to the back, and they separate it right down the middle, and then you attach the breast and like the front part of I don't know if I want to call it armor, but like maybe the collar on second. And if you do that, then you don't have access to the face, and part of, again, my early painting idea was do everything subassembly. So there was a whole lot of heck of trying to put this model together and try to gap fill and make everything look painted and well thought out. So there was a lot of learning that was done, I think. And because of it, it's one of those like soft spots for me. But yeah, it's so goofy. It is a teeter-totter. It's it's definitely playground elastomer statues. I know that the Black Knights kind of got those elastomer statues. I wonder if I could maybe revisit this and put her on one of those.
Number 3. Got a pinup. The pinup Butcher.
Ooh. Ooh.
I love the Butcher. It's one of my favorite showdowns, and I think this Butcher model is an improvement on that core Butcher. So when the pinup showed up, I threw this thing on a 50mm base so that I could just use this instead of the Butcher. Because man, this model is so much more fun than the Butcher in the core. Like, it's bigger scale, it's got more movement, it's more dynamic, it's got more skin. Like, something I keep, bringing up. We've said it multiple times. Lots of skin, and a bunch of armor, and it's the Butcher. She's great.
It's a shame the Millennium is so big, a 3x3. Would have been neat for it to directly replace core Butcher.
Would have been cool.
I like the pinups, replacing the core monsters, like the Manhunter pinups, awesome as well.
Oh yeah.
But I struggle with doing that in the game for whatever reason. I want my monsters to be big, bad, scary things, and I want my survivors to be beautiful.
For the humanoid monsters, I don't mind it as much.
Yeah.
Though I do have, I have the pinup Dung Beetle Knight and the pinup Dung Beetle Ball. Like, they both are on 50mm, so they're both on the table. But yeah, if there was like a pinup Dragon King, I'd probably still put the monster on. Oh, because then it would be like, whatever size that base is with a tiny little pinup survivor on it, that wouldn't work. But give me a pinup hand. We have the pinup Kingsman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So give me a pinup God Hand or a pinup Hand, and I'd replace that one too.
My number 3, yes. Pinup, another pinup. I think pinups are great. Kingdom Death. Urza, Deadheim. I don't really know like I don't really understand too much about Deadheim, where it is in the story, but there's some really great gear that came with this thing. Robes of Deadheim, the scythe, and I think there's a lantern as well or something. But or no, the Ghostlink pumpkin maybe. Um, it's just an unbelievable model, and yeah, I think Zero did one recently, which is absolutely stunning. Um, the pose is fantastic. Again, I've got scythes everywhere. I love scythes. I think the shape of scythes are awesome. Um, it's a great pose, very thematic. A lot of skin. Great model. Fantastic. My number 3. All right. So number 2 is my final knight model, and I had to include this one in the top 10 because I think it really uh, encapsulates Kingdom Death for me. It is the Gold Smoke Knight. It is the final capstone for the People of the Lantern campaign. Um, it is a model I actually painted on video. I actually did a little video on how to paint non-metallic metal. If you haven't seen that, I'm sure Bra will link that in the comments. But yeah, I love the pose. I love the big fat belly. I love the smoke coming out of him. I think it's just again, it hits all of the things about Kingdom Death that I love. It's got a cool story, it's got a cool model, and it's a cool showdown. So I had to include it, and it is one of the only figures on my list that I've actually painted. So
Yeah, I remember painting this guy and being so proud of the like blue smoke that uh, fades into blackness. And I'm looking at that picture now, and I remember being real proud about that.
I'm gonna go look at your picture now.
Yeah, it's on KDM Collector.
Your picture is?
Yeah, you know,
Oh,
drop
yeah,
it in
is it
here.
the silver one?
It's this one right here, and
Okay.
that was when I was starting to figure out like, oh, I can do some weird things with these models, can't I?
Yeah, it's cool stuff.
There's a lot of awesome versions of the Gold Smoke Knight on Kingdom Death Collector, by the way.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of the older Kingdom Death gets, and sort of maybe the more attention that it gets from the more experienced painters and seeing what they do, it kind of like, oh wow, this is cool. Just sort of seeing like early paint jobs, like early releases, and then sort of it develop into like whenever you see like the actually even your work, Deno, or Eric Swenson, or I want to say Arnau. I feel
Mm.
like they painted some of them as well, and whenever you just see some of the uh, how experienced painters bring Kingdom Death to life, you sort of all of a sudden it weighs on you like, oh, these models are really good.
ready for my number 2?
Yeah,
I'm excited. Come on, Mumford.
yeah.
Wow me.
Okay, here you go. It's Fade.
Ooh.
Fades are
Like
good.
I remember when I first got into Kingdom Death, and I saw a bunch of were they considered white box? Yeah, they were white
Mhm.
boxes at the time.
Mhm.
And I remember like going through them. I was like, oh, these are neat, these are cool. And then I hit Fade, and I'm like, that's really interesting. I don't see many models of like a postpartum woman with a sword and a baby, and like she's got a great pose. She's got a lot of skin. She's got a different slightly different body form. Like Fade's great. I love Fade.
Mm.
Like I I tried hunting her down when I first got into this because she was not in print or available at the time. But then I ended up being able to just pick up the whole white box collection at Gen Con in like 2018, I think, maybe 2019, but probably 2018. Maybe it was 2019. But yeah, she was one of those models that kind of hooked me, and I was chasing when I wasn't playing the game as much as I was like trying to figure out what the game was and what these models are. But yeah, if they're going to reprint Fade and hopefully scale her up, this is a model I would paint again because I love this
Yeah.
model.
Scale her up would be good.
Yeah.
So my number 2 uh, is, and it's another generic, but it was one that they the sculpt this is just so good. It's the generic boxer. Um, it's she's really stylized as like a character where she's got massive hips, really muscular thighs, muscular calves. Like she is cut and curvy and muscular. But my favorite aspect of this is she's got this wide eye, serious face, and that right arm is cocked and ready to go. She's about to explode. Fall, and then like she's holding on to her sweater, and things are moving right behind her, and like for me, I just feel the explosive energy that's just about to happen. This is the snapshot that's taken right before you get that KO in like a boxing or anime or something like that. And I'm just uh this one is just one of my absolute favorites. And we keep talking about movement. We keep talking about um the flow of a model, and this one is it for me. There are orb volumes everywhere. She's muscular. Everything's cut. It's uh it's it's a number of different things, but it's like the zoom in on the face with the right hand just cocked, and just like I do not want to be in front of her whenever she like unloads that spring. Um, yeah, this one for me is like one of my absolute favorites. Just it's just so good. Um,
So they updated this and put it in Echoes
Four.
3 or 4.
Yeah.
In 4?
Four, yeah. With the
And I
immortal
think-
arm.
Immortal arm. She immortal arm.
yeah,
Yeah. And I remember seeing that model in Echoes 4, and I was like, that model just didn't do it for me
Yeah.
compared to this one.
Mhm.
And it is, like, it just doesn't have the same movement. It doesn't have the same kineticism.
yeah.
It looks so much more static than this one.
Like I appreciate that what they've done with 4 in terms of they put her in the fantasy setting, because I do recognize that like in Kingdom Death having the generics that are maybe more, I don't know, modern times, maybe it's not quite as exciting, or I don't know, maybe depending on taste. But like this one I want them to come back to this, or revisit Boxer again. Uh, we'll see. But yeah, the kineticism that Mumford's talking about, just everything's like it's about to unleash. And I don't know, the anticipation that's built into the model. I can't get over it. This is absolute favorites.
I would have never chosen that model for my top 10, but I agree with absolutely everything you're saying. The energy, the feeling, it's a phenomenal sculpt.
All right, we have reached that time, gentlemen. PhD is going to start us off.
We're at number 1. Okay. So my number 1, I'm going to stand by this, is the Possessed Twilight Knight. I realize that this is sort of a collab model, so it's not necessarily Kingdom Death specific, but and there's a little history with this, where from what I understand, this was a collaboration with Soda Pop Ninja Division, but their Kickstarter fell through for one reason or another, and this model was done by Kingdom Death, or APG rather, to sort of make up for what had fallen through with the Soda Pop Ninja Division Kickstarter. So they released these to those backers, and this kind of hits all the things that I love seeing. We have a dynamic pose. We've got a lot of really interesting elements. We've got a base that is maybe even a little bit meta, where we've got you can see the starting 4 survivors that are built in with all the little tiny lanterns. You see the white lion and the typical D10 that you see, that you play with in the game. This is a Twilight Knight, so it has the iconic sword that's built in with all of the various die that run around, or that are built around the elements that they were working on. And I'm a huge fan of this sort of ring with all of the various faces, where they've got cards, the cards that you'd be using sort of in game, but pairing that with the game scale models in this painter scale model of the core four. I just thought it was a really interesting sculpt and probably not something that you would typically ever see in Kingdom Death, where they're sort of self-referencing themselves. So kind of this, there's just a lot of little tiny small things that I really appreciate and feel like is really fun in this. And yeah, so this is why this one pick ended up being number one for me.
It's a cool model. Did you paint the faces on those dice?
I did. I figured if I'm going to try to follow suit with the way that you play the game, you got to get the lanterns on there. So some of them worked out pretty well, and I tried to at least the way that I painted it is I tried to get the dice sets that kind of existed: the winter set, the Valentine's set, I think summer, the typical ivory and black, and then the Halloween was the big one. So I tried to get all the different color sets that were released at the time, because I think they released a couple more since then. I want to say the black, and then the
Death Black,
gold.
Golden Bat just now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Squire.
So yeah, it was it's kind of self-referential, but it's got all of maybe the most iconic aspects, where you have the starting four, you have the white line, you've got the Twilight Sword, and I love the Twilight Knight sort of as a thematically and in game, and typically for something to paint, they always end up being this something that I'm drawn to, whether I mean to or not. I just end up gravitating towards the Twilight Knight.
Now, did you
So
receive
interesting.
this as a backer?
No, the way that I obtained this was through third party, just because I was like, it spoke to me so much. I'm like, I got to get it. I gotta find it. I ended up paying more than you should. Don't go pick this up, because I will say, as much as I love the sculpt, whoever had done the resin or the casting, it's bad. So don't go pick this model up. Adam, I think, has stated that they are interested in trying to redo this in plastic at some point, probably really, really far down the line. But if I could recommend anything right now, if you're looking at this model, wait for it to come out. Do not pick it up. It's bad.
It's so interesting to me. The reasons why you chose this are the reasons why I couldn't include this. Because I looked at this for quite a while, but the meta aspects of this are the thing that turned me off the model.
Yeah.
It's a great figure. It's a great pose, really dynamic shape. But I can't cop the dice and the figures and the cards all over it. It's the opposite. But I do have that model. I do have a copy of it. I may end up painting it. It is a bad resin cast. Not fun to assemble.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of cleanup. I think the main reason perhaps it made the number one spot is just, I don't think a model like this would have existed if the other company wouldn't have fallen through. And because of part of that uniqueness and it being a Twilight Knight, kind of ended up putting it at that number one spot for me. Some of them weren't too bad. Some of them, if you look at them, they're a little dicey. So, well, okay.
Wow.
Great call.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Montford.
So we're good,
Go
right?
on.
We can
Yeah,
move on
go
now.
Yeah, go on.
You got it out of your system.
Yeah.
All right, so my number one is I've got another pinup, the Screaming God pinup.
What a call.
Yeah, so this is one of the painter scales I did from the pinups, and man, I love this one so much. It's a sexy model. He's got a very it's not a super dynamic pose. He's I was trying to think of the other one that it was a lot like. It's kind of a straight up pose with a little bit of a wiggle there, but there are things that I like about this model. Like, there's a lot of skin, there's a lot of metal, there's a lot of different texture. You've got the antlers that you get to work on. He does have a lot of fur texture on the cloak, which, is kind of obnoxious, but, you know, that's fine. It works, and I spent a lot of time on this guy because he was so interesting to paint. Like, he's got a very interesting expression. He's not, a big angry dude. He's contemplative, thinking about something important. Who knows? Uh, he's got some nipple rings. That's fun. But yeah, this one was just a blast to paint, and I would paint this one again, and I'm specifically calling out the painter scale one because I think the smaller scale, it's just not as much fun to work with. Like, this larger scale model is like one of my favorite things that I painted from Kingdom Death. And I think when I was working on this, I also was like, oh, I can do a better job painting these things. And Deno, you gave me feedback on this thing way back a couple years ago. You're like, hey, here are some tips. Like, here's how to make the skin look a little bit more alive, and here's how, like, the lighting might work a little bit. Like, the lighting is definitely wrong here, but it was one of those times where I put a lot of effort into it because I really enjoyed the whole process, and I liked how this guy looked, and it kept me hooked, and made me want to paint more Kingdom Death stuff.
In a game that has so many, such a bad reputation for gratuitous female nudity, it's actually so great to see male figures in the same lens, and I'm sure there'll be more coming. But this is such a fantastic figure to have as a number one. It's like, screw you, Kingdom Death, having all chicks. My number one's a dude. Get that up, yeah.
Yeah. Amongst their pinups, especially their male ones, a lot of them aren't. They're not just angry, or like this. They're not just stoic or angry. A lot of them are. The one that I'm thinking of, for here is that it's. The expressions are, self-reflective or internalized. There's, something complex going on in the mind of perhaps the character more so than, the only two expressions that men know how to be, which is just stoic, no feelings, or angry. Yeah, those are the two you get. That's
That's the breadth of my experience.
Right. So I appreciate, they really are sort of thinking about it from an artistic perspective of, there's a spectrum of emotions of there's more capacity than just skin and nudity or lewd, which what have you. So yeah, I agree. This is a really great pick.
Yes. So I'll tell you a little story. Many years ago, I was a young man, still as good looking as I am now, but probably a little less wise in the world of display painting. And there was a competition called the Crystal Brush. And one of my things I used to do was look at Crystal Brush entries and just be absolutely amazed at the caliber and the quality. And one of the figures that I vividly remember to this day was a figure that won third place at the Crystal Brush, painted by Jessica Rich, and it was I'll push enter, as a flower witch from Kingdom Death, and it had a great, incredible story. It stuck with me for a very long time. And when I was thinking about my number one, and I was trying to decide, which one do I want? Do I want to go with one I've painted? I had the Gold Smoke Knight number one for a while, but I realized that the one that actually made me fall in love with Kingdom Death was the Flower Witch. I saw it, I loved it. The pose is unique. The boobs are glorious. What I know now about Kingdom Death, the story behind her, where she is with the sparrow and in the forest, like, I am so jazzed to find out more about her. I'm assuming she's a long way off in the Abyssal Woods expansion, but she'll be there. It's a phenomenal figure. It's got great variety of different textures to paint. You've got leaves, you've got hair, you've got glorious skin, an incredible mask. it's for me. It was a clear number one. So thanks to Jessica Rich.
One of my absolute favorite things from maybe the Abyssal Woods expansion, but it's we think of maybe the first set of expansions with Lonely Tree, which is like maybe one of the few instances where we've got a model specific that's thinking about maybe the foliage of Kingdom Death and how like horrific it is, and then Abyssal Woods sort of contrasting that, where we still have that horrific, terrifying, like the plant life, but then we've got the Flower Witch, which is I think vast improvements compared to some of the model. What was it, the Lonely Lady that comes with the
Yep.
the Lonely Tree. This is great. This model is, I think, really well thought out, and it's like seeing improvement as well, where they're thinking about how can we really sell this different aspect, so everything's not just a stone face base or world building, and it's built right into the model.
Yeah, like this will be cool. Like this and the Disciples. Like I'm looking forward to both of them.
Yeah.
I'm really hyped to not have to paint the Sparrow Goblin again.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you just finished this.
It took me about 2 weeks. It's one of the biggest models I've ever painted. It was a lot. It's got a lot. But I'm glad that it's done. Abyssal Woods will probably be my favorite expansion because it's got so many good models.
If you don't know anything about Deno, let me explain that. What did you say? 3 weeks of Deno time is like a lifetime for normal human beings. The man is fast. I cannot understate how fast he is at painting. So that is it probably would take us normal human beings months, if we're trying to achieve similar levels of detail and outcome. It's bananas. So don't let him just sort of like, oh, it only took 3 weeks. I could do that. No. I mean, you can, and it takes. Just remember, it's going to take time. He operates on a different time dilation than the rest of us.
I'm partway inside a black hole.
Yeah.
Or everyone else is further out. Whatever
This
it is.
was reference. I get it.
It's a great model though. Great model. This looks great. What? How crazy is that Satan model going to be? The Ivory Dragon. It is just going to be obscene.
Enormous.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I haven't seen it in the flesh. Is it as glorious as it looks?
It's very cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
I hope.
Can't wait.
They really need to. It's one of the ones that they're really going to need to, if it works the way they're pitching it, where it's going to be 3 different fights, they really need to make sure to have the shop build, the build on the shop website updated, so people don't glue the 3 parts together if you're going to need it for fighting. Because it's supposed to have 3 fights to it, different fights. So the thing on top, then just the body, and then the 2 together. So hopefully no one glues what shouldn't be glued.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah. It happened with the encounter dice.
Good session, friends. Great picks. Very interesting to see how we all approached what was quite nebulous feedback guidelines from Bra. Pick your favorite 10 models.
Really
cool, man.
Stories. Some of the perspective that each of you shared with what this model meant to you. That's really cool. I appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you.
I didn't pick a model I didn't paint.
Which I think is awesome. I think that's absolutely fantastic because painting a model gives you a different lens on it. Like you get to see all the nuances, all the intricate details. And there's been models that I've loved when I've seen the figure and then I've painted it and by the end of it I hated it because of little things that I didn't pick up on and vice versa as well. So
yeah.
No, yes, thank you so much for joining me. This was very informative. Like I said, the feedback that you 3 have given is something I could never offer anybody who watches my channel in any way. Your knowledge is invaluable, so I'm so glad you agreed to spend some time with me.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a blast.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great time to plug the Lanterns Reign painting competition coming up soon, PhD.
Yes. Why don't you do that?
Yeah. So if you're seeing this video and you're like, wow, I'm all inspired to paint, we have in the Discord we have a competition that's beginners, intermediate, and masters, and you sort of self-assess where you think that you'll be best fit. And you have, because of where we're starting, if you're starting completely brand new, there's a forum, and feel free to @me on the Discord. Like I'm totally down to try to help and get you informed as much as you can. I think there are links on Reddit through the Our Kingdom Death subreddit where there's information on the models that we're looking for, and there's a whole submission form. But the deadline is September 30th, so it might be a little late, but I don't think it's too late to start. It's one of those really exciting competitions that we have that Deno and Andy will be judges, which they're great at adjusting the amount of feedback based on the category that you decide to enter. It's something that is one of my absolute favorite things that sort of springboarded a lot of my own personal interest in the hobby. So if this sounds like something that you want to more information, DM me, get a hold of me. I don't care how you do it, on Reddit, here, I don't know if you email, whatever. Just, if you want information, feel free to ask, because I'll be there for you. I'll try to help. So yeah, September 30th. That's the deadline. So you have what is it? 2 weeks, 2.5?
Yes.
Yeah, 2.5.
At the time of recording.
Yeah, at the time of the recording.
Bra's going to edit it real quick. He promised.
Yeah.
I'll do my best.
It's not going to be like the Squires playthrough, is it, Bra?
No, it's not.
It's going to disappear.
Yeah, no. That, yep. This was enjoyable.
I'm so glad to remind you of that. I played through it in 5 games.
I saw that. Yeah,
I clocked it in my first run. Cheers.
I wish I could roll that good. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope the 4 of us can get together for something in the future. I'm hoping. I'm sure there'll be some fun stuff we can figure out. So again, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for all your feedback and all your insight on painting. I'm so glad I was able to share that with so many people. It's just a blind spot that I have for Kingdom Death, and I would love to share as much hobby aspect as I can with everyone. As there's so many different aspects of the fan community that Kingdom Death draws in. It draws so many of all types. So, very enjoyable. Thank you, everyone. If you want to make sure, do any of you do commissions if you wanted to take the time? I don't think you do, right?
I don't.
No.
I do occasional commissions, but I have some very strict rules on them. The rules are I get to do anything I want, however I want, in whatever timeline I want, and you pay me for it. So if you're comfortable with those rules, feel free to send me a message.
There you go.
Seems reasonable.
I actually wouldn't doubt if you get a message.
Maybe I'll adopt those. That seems I could probably operate under those.
I did commissions and it was soul destroying, and so I just changed my mind, and that's what I do. And now if I do a commission, it's one I'm excited to paint, and I do whatever I want, and it's great.
Yeah, sounds like you found the cheat code.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's it. Shop, when are you doing that?
All right, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, Deno. Thank you, Mumford. Thank you, PhD.
Thanks for hosting, Bra.
Yeah, absolutely.
See you, champions.
Take care.